I don't like Nolan because he is one of those men that needs validation.
I'm AI with the braids. I'm AI with the braids.
A villain that acts like a villain?
How dare you?
Hi. Alright, before I get started with today's video, I'm going to clarify a couple things. One, this is not meant to be a hate video. I'm even going to leave Fantastic Frankie's channel link in the description. And two, her channel is considerably bigger than mine. I am 100% not trying to get views off of her name or anything like that. I'm an Invincible fan, so I got her video recommended to me in my feed. Don't get me wrong, she is entitled to her opinion, but they were still misinterpretations to Omniman's character.
Apparently, only women hate Omniman. One of my other videos, someone commented that to me, and I was really confused. But it does bring up an interesting conversation because I do see a lot of Nolan lovers. It's always been crazy to me because y'all never forgave Amber for yelling at Mark. Y'all can forgive Nolan for this?
Again, before Nolan eventually goes on to be the deuteragonist of the story, he is first the antagonist of the story. And it's a simple concept that the antagonist or the villain is supposed to be the villain. So it's pretty much expected for him to do things like this in the series. Whereas on the other hand, we have a character like Amber that completely goes against what the show intended for her character to be, and it shows. You can clearly tell they were going for like a Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy type character dynamic, where Peter has all these cool abilities, he's a superhero, saving the day, all that good stuff. But it ultimately comes at the cost of the romantic relationship that he has with Gwen. This doesn't work with Amber because she actually turns out to be a surprisingly selfish character in season 1, rarely caring how Mark felt in the relationship at all.
Oh my god. It's okay. This is why I'm always late or why I don't show. Because I'm off saving lives or stopping some bad guys or going to Mars. I wanted to tell you so many times. Did you hear what I just said?
Ugh, I know you're a superhero.
Huh? You know? You know?
I'm not an idiot. I figured it out weeks ago.
Okay, fine, I'm cool, I'm fine.
For weeks, Amber was stressing Mark out, adding more to his plate by giving him crap, but come to find out, she knew. So when the Reaniman attacks the campus, Mark disappears, comes back as Invincible, and saves her and everyone else on the campus. But keep in mind,
Where the hell did you go?
I ran for help.
she knows that he's invincible, so she knows why he disappeared, and she still got mad.
You said you wanted to start over. You said that. You promised. Even Eve vouched for you, and then you do this? Eve was wrong about you.
She even cries. This is the true definition of insanity. Getting jumped by overpowered dead Terminators? Almost dying to a giant psychotic humanoid predatory cat? People's lives could be at stake, and she still will get mad at him for not turning up. It doesn't matter what could have been happening. It's all about me, self, I. The reason why we like Nolan more than Amber is because Nolan is a well-written character that plays his archetype very well.
I will burn this planet down before I spend another minute living among these animals.
Could you say the same thing for Amber?
No.
And it's crazy because she later in the video even admits that Nolan is a well-written character, so you would think that she'd understand the reason behind his choices. Nolan was purposely written to be like this. It'd be very disingenuous to say that season 1 Amber was as well.
And Nolan is a well-written character who goes through a very interesting arc. I want to talk about why I personally, someone who's read the entire Invincible series, never forgave Nolan. For the rest of season 1, we watch him gaslight Debbie, train Mark to take over the world. When Mark said no to that, he crashed out. Man beat him to Chicago, called his mom a pet, and then left him there to die. Then in season 2, we see him move on and start an entirely different life with a fly that he met as a child. That's weird. That's weird to me.
All right, a couple things to unpack here. Again, she said one of the things that she doesn't like about Omni-Man and why she never forgave him was because of the actions that he took to carry out his mission, which is the reason he's on Earth in the first place, is to take over, is to prepare Earth for assimilation. That's what aliens do. That was his initial goal. So him gaslighting Debbie and training Mark to take over the world is part of that. Breeding with a compatible race is part of that. And no offense, but this is the part where I kind of questioned if we actually read the same comic series or not, or if she read it at all. Because if she did, she would know that Thraxans age very differently than any other race in this series. If I'm not mistaken, Thraxans fully mature by like 2 months, so they're already in adulthood by 2 months, with them only having about a year lifespan. It was even said in the comics that Oliver wouldn't even live as long as Nolan or like Mark because of his genetic makeup. They also are a highly intelligent species, perhaps more intelligent than humans, with one of their advantages being that even as infants, they're fully aware, fully conscious. They understand exactly what's going on in their world as soon as they're born. Imagine having max intelligence stats as soon as you spawn. So yes, in this scene, Oliver is fully conscious. He understands the gravity of the situation. He understands what's going on. He understands the conversation that's being had. He understands Mark. He knows Mark's name. He understands his mother. He knows his mother's name. This is not a child. Aliens will probably see us the same way. It'd be like, hey, we mature in 150 years, but they mature in 30 years? That's weird.
I understand that Nolan was indoctrinated into this life. Me personally, I don't like Nolan because he is one of those men that needs validation. He needs to be worshipped. He needs to be in the lead. In the show, we see him attempt suicide, and there's a duality with Debbie, who's also considering suicide. She saves herself. He doesn't commit the act because there's a moment where he sees he's needed and can be a hero. Once again, I want to remind you guys, because I can see your little fist balling, okay, that this is how I interpreted the event. Everyone's going to interpret it differently.
But even still, that begs the question as to what Nolan being a man has to do with anything. Anyone could be looking for validation, whether it be male or female. Maybe as a kid, you wanted to hang out with that certain group of kids in middle school or high school, but you just couldn't make the cut. Maybe you're not as social as you wish you could be as an adult, and it causes you to be the oddball out. Anyways, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but the point I'm trying to make is validation is a human thing. It's not just something exclusive to one gender. And if you ask me, that makes him even more relatable because seeking validation is something that humans do. This even shows Nolan's growth as a character because for thousands of years, he never actually needed to fit in. He just did. It was always just be emotionless and be strong or die. And in terms of him needing to feel like he is a hero, that's just him needing to have a purpose, which is again a human trait. Because again, all his life, he's just been an immortal killing machine. And when he had a wife and child, that changed all that. It gave him a better purpose, a real purpose. This scene clearly shows that after he loses all that, he wants to feel that again, but at the same time, simultaneously carry out his mission, which is why he decides to rule over Flaxa. And this is another character misinterpretation. Omniman does not want to be worshipped. If that were the case, then he would just be Homelander.
What will you have after 500 years?
You, Dad. I still have you.
The story of Omniman is just simply a test if an immortal killing machine can live a normal human life, can feel, can love, can be a good person. And you actually start to see that with other Viltrumites throughout the series.
Nolan is an incredible character. I am not refuting that. I love his arc. I love the way that he's written. I just don't like him as a person.
Fair enough, but if you were born into a race of humanoid, overpowered, genocidal maniacs, you probably would come out a crappy person as well.
I don't think that anything Nolan does is selfless. He knows that the Viltrumites are dwindling and they're not the dominant force that they were maybe 300 or 500 years ago. He has full-on plans to just stay on Earth and settle with Debbie because his protocol was to pull up to Earth and let them all know what's up. He is a world-recognized hero, gets to be worshipped by billions of people. That was the type of life he was trying to live. There's only 10 of them. Who was going to check him?
She keeps getting this misinterpretation that all Omni-Man wants is to be worshipped by humans, but that just isn't true. Nolan and the rest of the Viltrumites do not care if you worship them or not. If you do, that's fine, but you will join us or die. That is their mindset. Alright, this is a fair warning. There are going to be spoilers. I'm going to have to spoil some of the things that happen in the story so I can properly explain why Omni-Man or Nolan stayed with Debbie on Earth as long as he did in his true goal along with the other Viltrumites. So what she did get correct was that the Viltrumite population was dying out, and this was due to a weapon that was built to attempt to exterminate them, and it was partially successful because it killed a lot of Viltrumites. It was called the Scourge Virus, and it's basically like the Viltrumite version of the Black Plague. This thing was very contagious and it was very devastating, with side effects being Viltrumites would partially lose their powers if they were affected by it in any way, vomiting blood, and in Mark's case, because yes, later in the story he does get infected with the Scourge Virus, it would cause comas, nosebleeds, and it will also cause them to cry blood. Fun fact, this would kill any ordinary Viltrumite, but luckily for Mark, Omni-Man is part of the royal family. He's royal blood. Reason being is because Omni-Man's father is the Great Argall, or something like him being a descendant of the Great Argall. So it makes him royal blood as well. To sum it up, the Great Argall was basically the first ruler that was in power before Grand Regent Thrag was a substitute ruler. And Argall was able to survive the Scourge Virus as well, so it was passed on from Omni-Man to Mark. So yes, the Grayson family's Viltrumites are the royal family, so that means that they are the rightful rulers to the Viltrumites. But yeah, after the Scourge Virus ran its course, the remaining Viltrumites that were still alive all met together and had an agreement to send Viltrumites to other planets to prepare them for Viltrumite rule, and Nolan was tasked with Earth. Now remember, by the time Nolan gets to Earth, the Viltrumite population is extremely died down due to the Scourge Virus. And Viltrumite's mindset is also strength in numbers. So what do? They breed. I would also like to take this time to mention that human Viltrumite hybrids are the most powerful hybrids in the entire series due to their ability to access adrenaline, which regular Viltrumites cannot. Humans and Viltrumites are 100% compatible, but Oliver Grayson is a prime example of a race mixture that is not as compatible due to his purple skin. So with that information, we know that humans and Viltrumites are perfectly compatible. So Nolan is thinking, why get up and leave right away when this could be a perfect breeding ground? That is initially what he is thinking, because again, Nolan's orders were to prepare Earth for Viltrumite rule and assimilation. Getting attached and falling in love with Debbie was the last thing that he had in mind. But after a while, Nolan starts to realize that he's experiencing the genuine happiness of having a wife and child. After a while of getting attached to his new family, he makes the decision to abandon protocol and stay on Earth with Debbie and help raise Mark. And also, people aren't like hyper excited for superheroes like they would be in a universe like The Boys. Maybe you'll get one mention of Omni-Man, but for the most part, people aren't like huge Omni-Man fans. You don't see people wearing Omni-Man shirts throughout the show, Omni-Man merchandise. There's not any Omni-Man action figures in comic shops or anything like that. Whereas in The Boys, there's Vought this, Vought that, Homelander this, Homelander that, Starlight this, Queen Maeve that, A-Train that. Nothing like that with Omni-Man in this universe. So no one is worshiping him. He's just saving the world and going home to his wife and son. And then lastly, she says that he does absolutely nothing selfless. Again, spoilers for you guys that don't want to get spoiled, that haven't read the comics, because I'm about to drop another spoiler on you. For about 6 to 7 years, Nolan goes on to participate to putting a stop to Viltrumite rule once and for all. He becomes the emperor of the Viltrumites for a short period of time and guides them through the war against Thrag and his children. And for people who don't know who Thrag is, Grand Regent Thrag is pretty much just the Broly of the Viltrumites. He's like bred to be the strongest Viltrumite. Nolan gives his life to stop Thrag in the last battle. Thrag puts him in a box, sadly, but he still goes out like a boss. He gave it his all. He sacrificed himself for the greater good, which is a good send-off. It's honestly a pretty sad death, and in my opinion, it's Joel worthy from Last of Us 2. Even though that game sucked. But yeah, to say that he did nothing selfless at all is crazy.
I never read Nolan's redemption arc as sincere because every time he did something that was selfless, he ended up on top. He died a hero. And that was after he became the king of the Viltrumites. He still got to keep Debbie as a pet. They didn't even give her a death scene. Nolan got to live his life as a hero, a legend. And he got to die on top, which is all he ever wanted.
To that, my question is, what else you thought they were going to do with this character? He is the second most important character to the story. His journey is just as vital as Mark's is to the story, so they're going to give him a proper send-off. Nolan is a good representation of what a deuteragonist is supposed to be. And I will give her that kind of was messed up for them not to give Debbie Grayson a funeral. We'll admit that. But who wants to see Debbie Grayson die? It's already sad enough. No one wanted to see Omni-Man die, and Debbie Grayson was a great character. They didn't give any of the other characters a funeral because it was assumed that they were dead. We know that they're gone. They're not immortal. And as for Nolan getting to stay with Debbie, it felt believable because it wasn't rushed. When Debbie finds out that Omni-Man was never who he said he was, she moved on. She found another man. Same thing with Nolan, which is completely normal. This is something that people would do in reality.
And then there's the added fact that he committed mass murder and genocide before the events of Invincible. For me, I could never forgive. Oh yeah, and I also didn't like the way that he initially reacted to Anissa, as he ends up trying to fight her, blah, 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 blah. But there is a moment where he's trying to explain to Mark, like, you know, that's our culture, blah, 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 that I didn't bang with. I don't like Nolan.
Again, and that is completely fine. She's 100% entitled to her opinion. But I'm here to point out that what you don't like about Omni-Man is what makes him Omni-Man. Alright, I'm going to do another spoiler. So for people that haven't read the comics and don't want to be spoiled, you have been warned. I won't lie to you guys, that bit was kind of hard to understand. But from my understanding, she says that she dislikes Nolan's initial reaction to what Anissa does to Mark, which his first reaction is to try to snap her neck, which he would have done had Mark not lied to save her life. Of course, you guys probably already know who Anissa is, but you probably don't know what she's notoriously known for. So up until this point in the series, Mark has gone on a 5-month hiatus to a parallel dimension looking for Angstrom Levy. Once he gets back, a pregnant Eve is very angry at him for leaving, so she decides to break up with him, and this crushes Mark's soul. This man's pregnant fiance leaves him, and he flies away to clear his mind. Guess who shows up?
This is cancer. This is so much cancer that I can feel the tumors.
And this goes back to my first point earlier in the video, because the Viltrumites' goal is to repopulate due to their shortage from the Scourge Virus. And at some point before she found Mark, there was a scene where Thrag scolded all of the other Viltrumites for refusing to procreate, with Anissa being amongst the Viltrumites that were getting scolded. But she doesn't want any of the human men on Earth, so she chooses Mark. And of course, he rejects her. So you probably already know where this is going, but for the sake of time, I'm going to sum it up in a short clip.
I tell you what, I like you, and I want you. Now we can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. The choice is yours.
Nah, man, I'm 100% convinced that Robert Kirkman watches Boondocks. You can't tell me otherwise. After this certain thing happened, this resulted in Marcus Murphy being born. Mark wasn't always in Marcus's life, partially due to how Marcus was born, choosing to prioritize raising his daughter Tara and leaving his son Marcus behind. This causes more conflict later on in the story. So around this time, Omni-Man grew very suspicious. His initial reaction is to kill her, which is understandable. In another scene, Omni-Man talks to Mark about what Anissa did to him. He tells Mark that it's hard for him to process due to Viltrumite customs being what he's used to. This makes sense. Are these characters' actions justifiable? Absolutely not. But they are a product of their environment. Again, these characters are purposely written to be this way. The point she's missing is that Viltrumites live a animalistic lifestyle. They don't care about morals. It's survival of the fittest. For thousands of years, the Viltrumites have always been the most dominant species in their universe. To them, any other form of life that exists is inferior.
To answer my earlier question, is it only women that don't like Nolan? I don't think so. But if that's true, I think we should instead examine why it's so easy to forgive men who do unspeakable acts over women who are just a little bit annoying.
What? I don't know what these characters' genders have to do with anything, man. To that, I have to say a couple things. Okay, let me ask you a question. Which one of these characters makes choices that makes sense? Exactly what I thought. It's not about forgiving, it's more so about if it fits or not. If it's expected for the character to do that. If it makes sense. That's what the audience wants. They want a character that makes sense, that it's relatable. Once again, she is entitled to her opinions, yes, but she also completely misunderstands the character along with a lot of other people. Like, you wouldn't believe how many people actually think that Omniman slept with a child. But hey, look at that, you made it to the end of another one of my videos.
Boom, bam, bop, bada bop, boom, pow.
Thank you guys for 100 subscribers. That is insane. It may not be a lot, but it means everything to me. Now you guys are the real heroes. But in all seriousness, thank you so much. That means everything. Thank you so much for watching this video. You didn't have to, but you did. Even if one person watches my videos, that means the world to me. But yes, if you like this video, be sure to like, comment, and if you're feeling generous, hey, subscribe. It helps. Hey, even if you don't like this video, still comment. Feel free to disagree. Bro, come on. Imagine a world where every human being on the face of this planet just agreed with one another. That would be so miserable. But yeah, this is farewell, but not goodbye. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.